You were taught a lie from childhood to adulthood, from classrooms to pop science books. The world repeated it so often that it became a kind of secular scripture. You never grow new brain cells. And that one sentence shaped how entire generations understood themselves, their potential, and their future. If you knew the truth, you would treat every day of your life differently. For nearly a century, textbooks insisted that your brain was fixed. From the 1920s through the early 2000s, scientists believed adult brains couldn't make new neurons, not because they were ignorant, not because they lacked imagination, but because the tools they had simply couldn't see what was right in front of them. Back then, scientists didn't have MRI machines or fluorescent tracking. They had to soak thin slices of dead brain tissue in chemicals that stained the cells, and whatever appeared under the microscope was all they had to work with. But those stains couldn't tell a newborn neuron from a dying one. It was like trying to judge the life of a forest by examining a single fallen leaf. A brain scan in 1950 was like trying to read microscopic handwriting through a fogged windshield. You saw shapes, not truth. But then the myth ossified. Teachers repeated it, doctors repeated it, pop culture packaged it into neat little slogans. And slowly, what began as a limitation of technology became a limitation on the human spirit. And it had consequences. Whole generations of children were told, "You're just not smart. This subject isn't for you. Some people are born gifted, some aren't." Picture a child, 8, maybe 9, staring at a math problem too long. A teacher sighs, shakes her head, and says the line that will echo for decades. Some brains just don't work that way. And in that moment, a door doesn't just close, it seals. Because when you tell a young mind it cannot grow, it stops trying. A myth becomes a mindset becomes a fate. And the lie was convenient. A world of fixed brains is a world where mental illness becomes a life sentence. Trauma hardens into destiny. Personality is carved into stone. Medication becomes the only path forward. Schools benefited. If a child struggled, it wasn't a failure of teaching, it was just how their brain was built. Governments benefited. A population that believes change is impossible becomes predictable, governable, obedient. Why fight for a better life if you believe your mind is already finished? But beneath all those incentives lies the quiet devastation. Millions grew up believing their mind was not a garden to cultivate, but a prison to endure. And that belief, invisible, unchallenged, inherited, quietly shaped the architecture of their entire life. But the lie died, slowly, quietly, stubbornly, because the evidence became too overwhelming to bury under tradition. Adult neurogenesis is real. It happens largely in the hippocampus, the deep chamber of the mind where memory takes shape, where imagination is sculpted, where emotion finds context, where identity quietly rewrites itself night after night. And it works like this. Every single day, new neurons are born inside you. They are tiny, fragile, luminous things, a spark waiting to become a lantern. For 1 to 2 weeks, they exist in a heightened, almost enchanted state, more plastic, more excitable, more eager to cling to meaning, more capable of being woven into new networks. They are the youngest citizens of your mind, wandering through the circuitry like travelers searching for a village to belong to. They wait for instructions. They wait for patterns. They wait for you. And here's where the mythic becomes biological. If your days are filled with chaos, novelty chasing, and short dopamine loops, these young neurons are pulled into those circuits, strengthening distraction and craving. If your days are shaped by depth, learning, long form attention, challenge, they wire into those structures instead, fortifying discipline, memory, creativity, and long range thought. Every night in your dreams, these newborn neurons rehearse possibilities. The hippocampus replays the day, reshuffles meaning, builds new associations, and prunes away what no longer serves you. Your imagination is not random, it is architecture in motion. This is the punchline. Your habits aren't just shaping your character, they are sculpting your biology. Experience becomes structure, behavior becomes architecture, life becomes circuitry. And every dawn begins with new lanterns waiting to see what world you will let them illuminate. Now we reach the part nobody wants to admit. Modern culture is hijacking the neurogenesis cycle. TikTok, Reels, Shorts, infinite scroll, an endless fire hose of novelty without meaning, a casino in your pocket, open 24 hours a day, optimized to extract attention the way minds extract ore. Your brain evolved for scarcity. The algorithm evolved for abundance, specifically abundance of dopamine spikes. And the newborn neurons, these lantern sparks wandering your hippocampus, they don't know the difference between profound learning and digital slot machines. They only know input. They only know repetition. They only know whatever wins your attention most consistently. Let me paint a picture. A teenager wakes up, reaches for their phone, and scrolls through 300 microstimuli before breakfast. Faces, jokes, arguments, dances, outrage, ads, thirst traps, misinformation, product reviews, random facts, and the hollow silence between them. That entire morning, their newborn neurons are making a simple calculation. This is what matters. This is what survives. Build more circuits for this. And so the wiring forms around fragmented attention, craving loops, shallow pattern recognition, impulsive reward seeking. Bad circuits beat good circuits, not because the child is weak, but because the algorithm is strong. Children grow up unable to tolerate boredom, the very state required for deep thought, imagination, and original insight. Adults feel their ability to focus thinning month by month, like erosion eating away at the coastline of their mind. And the tragedy is not that humans become weaker. The tragedy is that nobody told them what was being done to their brain. Because here is the truth modern culture hides. Boredom is the crucible of genius. Silence is the forge where long-form thought is born. Stillness is the soil where the deepest neurons take root. A civilization that cannot think, cannot remember, cannot imagine, cannot survive. The brain will grow. The only question is toward what? Now the hopeful turn, the part of the story most people never hear. Neurogenesis is not a curse. It's a superpower. It means adults can change just as radically as children, and with far more intention, precision, and self-awareness. When you choose meaningful activities, learning something complex, reading deeply, engaging in long-form thought, practicing discipline, wrestling with philosophy, building narratives, frameworks, understanding, Those newborn neurons wire into high order circuits, reasoning, creativity, identity formation, emotional regulation, imagination, long term focus. And this is where Einstein enters, not as myth, but as anatomy. When he died, scientists sliced, stained, and scrutinized his brain, hoping to find some monstrous difference, some giant structure that explained the legend. Instead, they found a normal weight, a normal size, a normal overall shape. But in the regions responsible for spatial reasoning, abstraction, visualization, imagination, they found extra folds, expanded surface area, and dense, labyrinthine networks of synapses, circuitry sculpted over decades. It was not a mutant brain, it was a trained brain. Einstein spent his life pushing the boundaries of thought, visualizing warped spacetime, imagining chasing beams of light, holding impossible shapes in his mind until they revealed their secrets. Every time he did, he carved another groove, strengthened another pathway, invited another neuron to survive, connect, and become part of the architecture of genius. His brilliance wasn't lightning, it was craftsmanship. And that's the point most people miss. A brain left unused does not stay still. It decays, it simplifies, it collapses inward toward whatever requires the least effort. But a brain that is challenged reshapes itself into something worthy of that challenge. You are not locked out of greatness. You are not frozen in who you were at 17. You are not condemned to the wiring you inherited. You are not a consumer of your own life. You are the architect of the next version of yourself, literally, neuron by neuron. I'll tell you something quietly. People ask why I obsessively learn, why I dive so deep into ideas, why I connect threads across philosophy, science, myth, psychology, and culture. It isn't vanity, it isn't performance. It's because curiosity saved me. There was a time, years back, when my entire worldview cracked. I stepped out of the religion I was raised in, thinking freedom would greet me on the other side. Instead, I found another ideology waiting with open arms, promising certainty, purpose, identity. And for a moment, I believed it. I climbed onto that second bandwagon thinking I'd finally escaped. But then I started to see the seams, the magician's choice, the scripted answers, the psychological hooks disguised as truth. It was the same cage, just painted a different color. And I remember the night it broke, sitting alone with a book open in front of me, not scripture, not dogma, just ideas. For the first time, I wasn't being told what to think. I was learning how to think. And something in my mind sparked like a pilot light coming alive. In that moment, I made a decision. If I wanted a worldview with predictive power, if I wanted to understand reality instead of inheriting it, then it was my responsibility to learn relentlessly, honestly, endlessly. So I did. I studied everything I could get my hands on: philosophy, biology, psychology, systems theory, culture myth, neuroscience, every rabbit hole, every difficult book, every idea that forced me to grow. I followed all of them. Every time I reached for something deeper, every time I challenged myself, every time I refused to settle for easy answers, my brain changed with me. And when you understand that, really understand it, the tragedy becomes obvious. Nobody teaches this. Not schools, not parents, not culture, not governments. People drown in problems they could outgrow, struggle inside cages whose doors aren't locked because nobody ever handed them the user manual to their own mind. You are not stuck. You were simply never shown the controls. So here is the choice. You can live at the mercy of algorithms, at the mercy of distraction, at the mercy of whatever stimuli happen to reach you today. Or you can design the person you want to become, because every day neurons are born asking a question: where do we belong? So don't let the answer be scrolling again. Choose your circuits. Choose your meaning. Choose challenge. Choose depth. Choose the version of yourself that you would be proud to inhabit. Let me say it plainly and intensely. Do not wait for another life. Do not wait for another year. Do not stay this version of yourself repeating the same story. You can outgrow the person the world taught you to be. You can outgrow the habits that trained your mind to stay small. You can outgrow the identity shaped by algorithms hungry for your attention. Because every habit trains, every repetition is a vote, every day is a referendum on the future you will inhabit. The self is not found, the self is forged. And you are not who you were yesterday. You are who you practice today. If you practice distraction, you become scattered. If you practice depth, you become profound. If you practice discipline, you become powerful. If you practice meaning, you grow into a self that can hold meaning. Your mind is not stone. Your mind is clay. And every single day, the kiln burns anew. If this resonated with you, and if you want to see the deeper mythos behind the world I'm building, the next doorway is already open.